My name is Nora Bennett. I was 49 years old when my younger sister stood in front of the county board, pointed at me, and said, "She is not the director. She is just the woman who carries the soup." She said it into a microphone. There were 12 board members at the long table, 2 donors in the back row, a local reporter near the door, and a minutes clerk typing every word into the public record. My mother sat beside my sister, wearing the pearl earrings my father bought her before he died. She did not correct her. She nodded. The program they were trying to take from me was not just a lunch route. It was the Bennett Senior Meal Program, funded by a $510,000 county contract, supported by private donors, and serving 312 seniors across 3 towns every week. My sister Marla wanted the contract. My mother wanted the money to stay in the family. And on page 6 of the transfer packet, under proposed first-year expenses, Marla had written one line that told me exactly what this was really about. Family transition reimbursement, $42,000. Not food, not fuel, not kitchen repair. Herself. Then, under operational history, she signed this sentence. Incoming director Marla Bennett has personally supervised daily meal delivery operations for the past 18 months. That was the lie. The mistake was thinking nobody would check it. The second mistake was calling me the woman who carries the soup in a public hearing. The third mistake was forgetting that every cooler, every delivery, every senior signature, every temperature check, every missed route, and every emergency meal request had gone through the same old gray tablet I carried in my van. The tablet was scratched at the corner. The screen protector was cracked. The charging port only worked if you tilted the cable slightly upward, but it still opened under my operator ID. And by 9:31 that morning, that tablet would sit on the county hearing table while a compliance officer read 18 months of records into the microphone. Marla's total approvals would be 0. Before we continue, I want to say this. Hidden Revenge Stories share stories about people who stop disappearing inside their own families. If this story speaks to you, tell me where you are listening from, and tell me this. Have you ever done the work while someone else took the title? Now let me tell you how my own family tried to rename 12 years of my life as help. My father used to say that hunger had a sound. He did not mean stomachs growling. He meant the quiet that fills a room when someone is too proud to ask. He was a school bus mechanic, not a preacher, not a politician, not a rich man. But every Thursday night after work, he drove leftover bread from the grocery outlet to 3 widows on the east side of town. He called it his, quote, small route. When I was 17, I rode with him in his old green pickup. The passenger seat smelled like motor oil, peppermint gum, and the vinyl lunchbox he carried every day for 26 years. At the first house, Mrs. Hanley opened the door in a blue cardigan with one button missing. Dad handed her a paper bag and said, "Still warm if you put it in the oven for 10 minutes. She smiled like he had handed her gold. After we got back in the truck, he looked at me and said, "Nora, nobody should eat alone if we can help it." I did not know then that those words would become the spine of my life. My younger sister Marla was different from me in every way. She was bright, loud, pretty, in a way people noticed immediately. She could walk into a room 15 minutes late and somehow make everyone feel lucky she had arrived. I was the daughter who packed the car, wiped the counter, checked the lock twice, and stayed behind after everyone else left. My mother liked that about me when it helped her. She called me reliable. Then she called me difficult whenever I asked to be seen. When Dad died, I was 37. A heart attack in the driveway, sudden and clean in the cruelest way. One minute, he was carrying a box of canned peaches from the garage. The next, he was gone. At the funeral, Marla cried so hard that people had to hold her upright. I cried in the church kitchen while I filled coffee urns. That was how our family worked. Marla was allowed to collapse. I was expected to function. 2 weeks after the funeral, I found Dad's old delivery cooler in the garage. The green one with the cracked white lid and his initials written in black marker. I sat on the concrete floor and opened it. Inside was a folded route list, 3 grocery receipts, and a note in Dad's handwriting. Add Mr. Lowell. No family nearby. Likes tomato soup. I read it 6 times. Then I made tomato soup. That first route had 4 people, then 9, then 23. At first, I paid for the food myself. I used my part-time office salary and coupons from the Sunday paper. I cooked in the church basement because Reverend Ames let me use the kitchen after Wednesday Bible study. I was not a director then. I was not anything official. I was a grieving daughter with a cooler, a list, and my father's sentence repeating in my head. Nobody should eat alone if we can help it. Marla came by once during that first year. She leaned against the church kitchen doorway in designer boots she did not want touching the tile, and said, "This is sweet, Nora. Sad, but sweet." She picked up a dinner roll, took one bite, and asked if I had thought about doing something bigger with my life. I was packing stew into containers. I said, "This is bigger than it looks." She laughed. Not cruelly, not yet, just carelessly. Careless can become cruel when nobody stops it. For years, my mother treated the meal program like my hobby. She would call on delivery mornings and ask if I could take her to appointments because, in her words, "You only have your soup thing today." If Marla needed help moving furniture, I was expected to skip my route. If my mother wanted someone to host Thanksgiving, I was told I had the church kitchen contacts anyway. If a cousin asked what I did, Marla answered for me. "Nora feeds old people. She's basically a saint with Tupperware." Everyone laughed. I smiled because I had containers stacked in my car and no time to explain my life to people committed to misunderstanding it. But while they were laughing, the program grew. At 39, I registered it as a nonprofit. At 41, I won a small city grant. At 43, we partnered with 2 clinics because nurses noticed their elderly patients were eating better on the days our meals arrived. At 45, the county invited us to apply for senior nutrition funding. That was when I learned the language of systems: compliance, route verification, temperature logs, donor restrictions, delivery signatures, food safety checks, volunteer background forms. I did not know how to win a family argument, but I knew how to pass a county review. That became my sentence. I was not polished. I was not loud. I was not the person donors remembered first at a banquet. I was accurate. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I arrived at the church basement by 5:40 a.m. I unlocked the kitchen, turned on the fluorescent lights, tied my hair back, and checked the first batch of soup before the volunteers came. Every route ran through a gray tablet the county issued after our first contract. It tracked each senior's address, delivery time, meal temperature, allergy notes, emergency contact flag, and signature. Most people hated the tablet. I loved it. The tablet did not care who cried louder. The tablet did not care who had better hair. The tablet did not care if my mother thought I was too sensitive. It recorded who showed up. For 6 years, that tablet recorded me. Then the county announced the new 3-year funding cycle. The Bennett Senior Meal Program was approved for $510,000, paid across 3 years, with a possible expansion if we added weekend meals. That was when Marla started visiting. Not before, not when the church freezer broke, and I paid $1,800 from my emergency savings to replace it. Not when I drove through snow to bring Mrs. Hanley's soup after her hip surgery. Not when Mr. Lowell died and I sat with his nephew sorting through unopened bills because nobody else had come. Marla appeared when there was a number big enough to repeat. She came into the kitchen on a Thursday afternoon, wearing a cream blazer and carrying a leather folder. Mother was with her. That alone told me something was wrong. Mother did not come to the church basement unless there was a funeral lunch upstairs. "Nora," Marla said, smiling too widely, "we need to talk about the future." I was wiping down the stainless steel prep table. The room smelled like onions, bleach, and the cinnamon apples we had packed for the next morning. "What future?" "The programs." I folded the towel once. "The program has a board meeting next month. You can attend if you want." Mother sighed. "Don't be defensive." I looked at her. That sentence had followed me my whole life. Anytime I named what was happening, I became defensive. Anytime Marla wanted something, She became practical. Marla set her folder on the table. I've been thinking. With the new contract, this needs real management. I waited. She continued. You've done a wonderful job getting it started. 12 years of mornings. 12 years of routes. 12 years of seniors calling my cell when their sons forgot them and their daughters lived 3 states away. Started. But now, Marla said, it needs someone who can grow it. Mother nodded. Your sister has the personality for donors. I looked at the folder. What is that? A transition proposal. Transition to what? Marla smiled as if I were slow. To me as executive director. You would stay on operations, obviously. Operations. You know, kitchen, deliveries, volunteer schedules, the things you're good at. I picked up the towel again because I needed something in my hands. Mother said, it keeps the program in the family. It is already in the family, I said. I built it. Marla's smile thinned. Nora, you built a local charity. I'm talking about turning it into a regional organization. You have never run one route. I've worked in client relations for 11 years. You sell office furniture. I manage people. You manage commissions. Mother's voice sharpened. Do not speak to your sister like that. There it was. I could feed 300 seniors a week, manage county reporting, write grant renewals, train volunteers, pass audits, and keep people alive through heat waves. But if I did not admire Marla's folder, I was rude. Marla slid the folder toward me. Just read it. I did not open it. I'm not signing anything. Mother's face tightened. Nobody said sign today, Marla said. It's just a family discussion. That was the first stage. Just a discussion. 2 days later, it became pressure. Mother called me at 7:12 a.m. while I was loading insulated bags into the van. You embarrassed your sister. I was working. She cried after she left. She brought a takeover packet into my kitchen. It is not a takeover. It is support. I lifted the first cooler into the van. My shoulder pulled. The old injury near my neck flared, the one I got from carrying too many boxes before we had volunteers. Mom, I have 84 meals to deliver. You always do that. Do what? Hide behind work. I stood in the church parking lot with my phone pressed to my ear. A crow landed on the dumpster lid. The morning was gray and wet, the kind of March cold that gets into your sleeves. I'm not hiding behind work, I said. The work is real. Mother was quiet for a second. Then she said, your father would have wanted both his daughters involved. That was the sentence that almost worked. Because she knew exactly where to put the knife. I looked at Dad's old cooler in the back of the van. I still used it for Mrs. Hanley's route, even though we had newer ones now. No, I said. Dad would have wanted people fed. I hung up before she could answer. That afternoon, I found the first new piece of information. A donor named Paul Greer forwarded me an email. Subject line, leadership transition. The message was from Marla. Dear Mr. Greer, as the Bennett Senior Meal Program prepares for regional growth, I am stepping into the executive director role to provide professional leadership. Nora will continue assisting with route service during the transition. Assisting. I read the sentence 3 times. Then I looked at the attached donor presentation. On the first slide was our logo. On the second slide was Marla's name. Marla Bennett, incoming executive director. On the third slide was a photo of me carrying a cooler into Mrs. Hanley's building. The caption underneath said, volunteer delivery support. That was the first time my hand shook, not because I was afraid of Marla, because for 1 second I saw exactly how easy erasure could look when it was formatted nicely. I called Paul. He answered on the second ring. Nora, I'm sorry. I assumed you knew. I didn't. She said the board had approved it. We don't have a board vote scheduled until next month. A pause. Then Paul said, "You need to check the county portal." I opened my laptop in the church office. The office was barely larger than a closet. One metal desk, one filing cabinet, a fan that rattled, and a framed photo of Dad standing beside the old green pickup. I logged into the county provider portal. There it was, a pending request. Operator change packet uploaded. Submitted by Marla Bennett. Time, 11:48 p.m., March 14th. My stomach went cold. I clicked. The packet was 22 pages. Marla had listed herself as incoming director. Mother had signed as, quote, family representative. There was a proposed organizational chart where my name appeared under delivery support. And then I found the budget page. Family transition reimbursement, $42,000. Leadership consulting fee, $18,500. Brand relaunch services, $26,000. Marla's office furniture company was listed as the recommended vendor for the relaunch space. I sat very still. The church heater clicked behind me. Somewhere upstairs, Reverend Ames was moving, folding chairs for choir practice. The building smelled like dust, old hymnals, and the vegetable stock cooling in the kitchen. I did not cry. I printed the packet, all 22 pages. Then I opened the root tablet. The login screen glowed blue. Operator ID and Bennett 01. I exported the last 18 months of route approvals. I did not know yet how bad Marla's mistake was. I only knew she had moved from talking to filing. And once someone files a lie, you stop arguing with them. You preserve the record. The second new piece of information came from the donor portal. I asked our volunteer treasurer, Mr. Feld, to meet me at the church. He was 72, retired from banking, and had the kind of patience that made silence feel expensive. He sat across from me in the office, adjusted his glasses, and opened the donor access log. "Nora," he said after 2 minutes, "your sister requested administrator access 3 times. When? February 28th, March 3rd, and March 12th. She doesn't have authority." "No," he said, "which is why the system denied her." He turned the laptop toward me. There were the entries. Access request denied. Unauthorized administrator change. Requested by Marla Bennett. He looked at me over his glasses. "Do you want my advice?" "Yes. Do not fight her in the kitchen." I almost laughed. Where should I fight her? With the people whose signatures matter. That was how I first called Elaine Porter. Elaine Porter was the county nutrition compliance officer. She did not sound warm on the phone. She sounded exact. That was better. "I received an operator change packet," she said. "Is the transfer approved by your governing board?" "No." "Have you resigned?" "No." "Did you authorize Marla Bennett to represent herself as incoming director?" "No." There was a pause. I heard typing. Then Elaine said, "I am placing a preliminary review note on the packet. Do not confront the applicant about this yet. The applicant is my sister." I understood that from the signatures. She told donors she was taking over. "Send me the donor email." I did. "Send me your current route logs." I did. "Send me your compliance correspondence for the last 18 months." I did. Then Elaine said the sentence that anchored me. "My signature can freeze this transfer, Ms. Bennett, but I need the record complete before the hearing." That was Elaine Porter. She did not comfort me. She did not say my family was awful. She did not call me brave. She told me what the record needed. I trusted her immediately. The third new piece of information arrived on a Wednesday morning. Mrs. Hanley refused to sign the tablet. She was 86 by then, thinner, sharper, and still wearing blue cardigans. I handed her the meal container, but she kept her hand away from the screen. "Nora," she said, "are you leaving us?" "No." Her eyes narrowed. "Then why did that sister of yours call me?" My fingers tightened on the delivery bag. "What did she say?" "She asked if I would give a statement about how your program needed younger leadership." I stood on her porch with tomato soup cooling in my hand. "She called you?" "Yesterday afternoon. Said the county wanted community feedback." "The county did not ask her to call you." Mrs. Hanley's mouth pressed into a line. I thought not. She kept calling you sweet. That one almost made me smile. Mrs. Hanley signed the tablet with a hard stab of her finger. Then she said, Your father brought me bread when my Harold died. You brought me soup when my hip broke. Your sister brought me a question that smelled like money. I saved that sentence in my mind, not because I planned to use it, because someone remembered. Sometimes, the world gives you one witness at the exact moment your family tries to make you feel imaginary. The fourth new piece of information came from Reverend Ames. He found me in the kitchen late Friday afternoon, after the volunteers left. I was labeling containers for the weekend emergency list. The radio was playing low. Rain tapped against the basement windows, and the room smelled like chicken broth, lemon dish soap, and the banana bread one volunteer had brought in. Reverend Ames held a folded paper. Nora, I wasn't sure whether to show you this. I dried my hands. What is it? A facility use inquiry? It was from Marla. She had requested to reserve the church basement kitchen for a new leadership launch reception the night before the county hearing. The attached flyer read, Bennett Meals Forward, a new chapter under Marla Bennett. At the bottom, in smaller text, it said, Honoring the Volunteer Foundation created by Nora Bennett. Volunteer Foundation. I sat down. Reverend Ames stood quietly beside the prep table. He had known my father. He had prayed at his funeral. He had given me the key to this kitchen before there was a contract, before there was a logo, before Marla knew there was anything here worth taking. I did not approve it. He said, Thank you. She asked if I understood how much funding was coming. I looked up. His expression did not change. I told her I understood exactly why she was asking. That night, Marla called. I let it ring. Then Mother called. I answered because some part of me still had not learned. Nora, Mother said, This has gone far enough. I agree. Your sister is trying to help you. She filed an operator change packet without approval. Silence. Then Mother said, You were never good at the public side. There it is. What? The real sentence. Mother exhaled sharply. Don't twist my words. I'm not twisting them. I'm hearing them. You are tired. Everyone knows you are tired. Marla has energy. She has polish. Donors like polish. Hungry people like meals. This is exactly what I mean. You take everything personally. I looked around the church kitchen, the metal racks, the labeled containers, the route map taped near the refrigerator, Dad's cooler on the bottom shelf. It is personal, I said. You are trying to take the thing I built from my father's last promise. Mother's voice softened then, which was worse. Oh, Nora, your father belonged to all of us. Yes, I said, but this work did not. She had no answer for that. The hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday at 9 a.m. Marla sent me one final email the night before. Subject, please be reasonable. Nora, tomorrow does not have to be embarrassing. I know change is hard for you. I will make sure you are publicly thanked for your years of service. But if you challenge this in front of the board, you will look bitter and unstable. Please think about Mom. Please think about Dad's legacy. Marla, I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to Elaine Porter. Elaine replied 4 minutes later. Received. Bring the route tablet fully charged. That was all. No comfort. No outrage. Just the correct weapon. I charged the tablet overnight on my kitchen counter. At 5:30 a.m., I made coffee and stood barefoot on the cold tile, watching the battery climb from 93 to 100%. I thought about calling Mother. I thought about telling Marla to stop before the county read her packet aloud. But then I remembered Mrs. Hanley's porch. Your sister brought me a question that smelled like money. I put the tablet in my bag. At 7:42 a.m., Mr. Feld met me at the church office and exported the donor access history to a flash drive. At 8:03 a.m., Reverend Ames handed me a signed letter confirming that Marla had no authority to reserve the church kitchen or announce leadership changes. At 8:15 a.m., Elaine Porter filed a compliance hold on the operator change packet. At 8:27 a.m., I parked outside the county building. The sky was clear. which felt wrong. Some mornings should look like storms. The County Senior Services boardroom was on the second floor. Beige walls, gray carpet, fluorescent lights, a flag in the corner, and a long table where people decided whether work counted. Marla arrived at 8:48 a.m. She wore a navy dress, nude heels, and the expression of someone arriving to collect something already purchased. Mother walked beside her. She looked smaller than I remembered, but not sorry. Marla saw me and smiled. "Nora," she said, "I'm glad you came." I was invited. "That's good. It'll be better if you don't make it emotional." I looked at the folder under her arm. "Did you read the whole packet before you signed it?" Her smile flickered. "Of course." "No," I said. "You didn't." Mother snapped. "Enough!" I said nothing else. That was my fake defeat. I sat alone on the left side of the room, the gray tablet in my bag, my hands folded. Marla sat on the right side with Mother. She opened her folder and placed 3 copies of her transition proposal on the table. I noticed the tabs were color-coded. Leadership, budget, legacy. She had prepared a performance. She had not prepared for a record. 2 donors arrived and sat in the back row. Paul Greer was one of them. He gave me a small nod. Mrs. Hanley's niece came in next. She was listed as a public comment speaker because Mrs. Hanley no longer liked county stairs. Reverend Ames sat near the aisle. A local reporter from the town paper slipped into the back corner. The minutes clerk began typing before anyone spoke. Small room. Not private. At 9 a.m., Chairwoman Douglas called the hearing to order. "We are here to review the proposed operator change request for the Bennett Senior Meal Program." Marla sat straighter. Mother touched her pearls. Elaine Porter entered at 9:04 a.m. She carried one slim binder and wore a county badge clipped to her jacket. She did not look at me first. She looked at the board. That mattered. Authority does not need to wink at you when the record is enough. Chairwoman Douglas said, "Ms. Bennett, since this packet concerns your program, we'll begin with the proposed incoming director." Marla stood. She gave a beautiful speech. I will admit that. She spoke about growth, modernization, donor confidence, brand expansion, professional leadership, and honoring family legacy. She said my father's name twice. She said our family mission 5 times. She said Nora's volunteer heart once. Each phrase landed like a clean, polished stone. Then she made her mistake into the microphone. "My sister has always been devoted to the hands-on side," she said, turning slightly toward me. "But she is not the director in the professional sense. She is just the woman who carries the soup." The minutes clerk typed. Paul Greer looked down. Reverend Ames closed his eyes. Mother smiled faintly, as if Marla had finally said the practical thing out loud. I felt heat rise in my face. But I did not move. I did not speak. Because silence is not weakness when the next voice belongs to the record. At 9:17 a.m., Chairwoman Douglas asked Elaine Porter for the compliance summary. Elaine opened her binder. "Before I summarize, I need to clarify the packet under review." Marla sat down slowly. Elaine continued. "The submitted operator change packet contains a signed statement from Marla Bennett. I will read the relevant sentence into the record." She adjusted her glasses. "Incoming Director Marla Bennett has personally supervised daily meal delivery operations for the past 18 months. The room went still. Elaine looked at Marla. "Ms. Marla Bennett, did you write and sign this statement?" Marla smiled tightly. "Yes, in a leadership capacity." Elaine said, "That was not the question." Marla blinked. Elaine repeated, "Did you write and sign this statement?" "Yes. And do you stand by it?" Mother shifted in her chair. Marla said, "Yes, with context." Elaine turned one page. "At 8:15 a.m. today, I placed a compliance hold on this packet pending verification. The county route system shows 18 months of meal delivery approvals under operator ID in Bennett 01. That operator ID belongs to Nora Bennett." Marla's face changed. "Not fully. Just enough, Elaine continued. The system shows 14,612 meal delivery confirmations during the review period. Nora Bennett approved or directly supervised all route batches. Volunteer drivers appear under delegated route codes. Marla Bennett appears on 0 route approvals. The first whisper moved through the room. Elaine looked at the board, not at Marla. 0 delivery checks, 0 temperature approvals, 0 emergency meal authorizations, 0 missed route corrections. Chairwoman Douglas leaned forward. Ms. Porter, is there any record of Marla Bennett supervising daily operations? No, Marla stood. That's because Nora kept me out of the system. Elaine looked up. There are also 3 administrator access requests from Marla Bennett. Each was denied because no board authorization or current operator release was attached. Paul Greer shifted in his chair. Elaine turned another page. The donor portal confirms those requests occurred on February 28th, March 3rd, and March 12th. Marla said, I was preparing for transition. Elaine said, there was no approved transition. Mother said, this is a family matter. Elaine turned her head. No, Mrs. Bennett. This is a county-funded nutrition program serving vulnerable seniors. The moment a false operator statement was submitted, it became a compliance matter. I saw my father's face in my mind then, not as he looked in the casket, as he looked in the truck, tapping the steering wheel, waiting for Mrs. Hanley to answer the door. Nobody should eat alone if we can help it. At 9:23 a.m., Elaine read the budget page. The packet also requests a first-year allocation of $42,000 for family transition reimbursement, $18,500 for leadership consulting, and $26,000 for brand relaunch services connected to a vendor associated with Marla Bennett's employer. Marla's mouth opened. No words came. Elaine said county nutrition funds are restricted. These expenses are not allowable under the contract without prior written approval and demonstrated program benefit. Chairwoman Douglas looked at Marla. Ms. Bennett, did you intend to pay yourself a transition reimbursement from county meal funds? No, Marla said quickly. That is being mischaracterized. Elaine placed a copy of the packet on the table. It is your line item. There are moments when people lose power slowly, and there are moments when everyone in the room watches them understand that their own signature arrived before their excuse. This was the second kind. Mother's face had gone pale. Marla looked at me then. For the first time that morning, she looked not irritated, not superior, not practiced, afraid, as if I had done something to her. But I had not. She had asked the county to decide who ran the program, so I let the records answer. At 9:28 a.m., Chairwoman Douglas asked if there were public comments. Mrs. Hanley's niece stood first. My aunt asked me to read this because she cannot come upstairs easily. She unfolded a paper. Nora Bennett has delivered meals to me since before this program had a name. Her father brought me bread before that. I do not know Marla Bennett, except that she called me to ask if I thought Nora was too old-fashioned to lead. I told her no. She did not write that down. The room was very quiet. The niece folded the paper. My aunt also said, and I quote, "The sister brought me a question that smelled like money." Someone in the back let out a small breath that was almost a laugh. Marla's face burned red. Then Reverend Ames stood. The church basement kitchen was used by Nora Bennett with permission beginning 12 years ago. No facility use request has ever been made by Marla Bennett until last week, when she asked to host a leadership launch reception before this hearing occurred. I denied the request. Elaine added the letter to the binder. Paul Greer stood last. "I'm a donor," he said. "I received an email from Marla Bennett claiming she was stepping into the executive director role. I forwarded it to Nora because it did not sound right. I want the record to show that donors were informed of a transition that had not been approved." The minutes clerk typed every word. At 9:31 a.m., Elaine gave her recommendation. Based on false operational history, unauthorized administrator access attempts, unallowable budget items, and lack of current operator release, I recommend immediate rejection of the operator change packet. I also recommend temporary confirmation of Nora Bennett as active operator pending full board review, a freeze on any reimbursement connected to the submitted packet, and removal of Marla Bennett from donor or vendor-facing communications related to this contract. Chairwoman Douglas called for a vote. It passed unanimously. Marla made a sound then. Not a sob, not a word. A small, shocked breath, as if the room had broken a rule by not becoming hers. Mother reached for her hand. Marla pulled away. At 9:38 a.m., Elaine looked at me. "Ms. Nora Bennett, can you confirm that you will continue service under the current operating schedule while the review is completed?" I stood. My knees felt weak, but my voice did not. "Yes. Do you have the current route system available?" I took the gray tablet from my bag and placed it on the table. The cracked screen caught the fluorescent light. Elaine tapped it once. The login screen appeared. Operator ID NBennett01. She looked at the board. Active operator confirmed. That was the moment. Not dramatic music, not shouting, not revenge in the way people imagine. Just an old gray tablet on a government table, proving I had been there every morning my family called it help. Marla whispered, "Nora, please." I looked at her, then at my mother, then back at the board. "You asked the county to decide who ran this program," I said. "So I let the records answer." That was all. Long speeches are for people who still need to be believed. I had the tablet. After the hearing, Marla tried to follow me into the hallway. "Nora, wait." I kept walking until we reached the window near the stairwell. The county building parking lot stretched below us, full of ordinary cars and people carrying folders that could change their lives. Mother came behind her. "Nora," Mother said, "this got out of hand." I turned. "No, it became official." Marla's eyes were wet now. "You humiliated me. You submitted a false packet. I was trying to help. You were trying to pay yourself $42,000 from meal funding." Mother flinched at the number. Marla said, "That was a placeholder." "I'd had your signature." She looked away. Mother's voice trembled. "Couldn't you have handled this privately?" I almost laughed then. Not because it was funny, because of how familiar it was. When I cooked, delivered, wrote grants, trained volunteers, and carried grief quietly, that was expected to be public service. But when Marla lied publicly, the correction was supposed to be private. "No," I said, "you made my erasure public. The correction had to be public too." Mother's mouth folded in on itself. "Your father would be heartbroken." That sentence had worked on me for years. This time, it did not. My father would have asked who was eating lunch today. Neither of them answered. Because neither of them knew. I did. Mrs. Hanley was getting tomato soup and a roll. Mr. Alvarez needed low-sodium chicken stew. The Quinn twins, 91 years old and still arguing about baseball, were getting turkey sandwiches because they liked to split the dessert. That was the difference between a title and the work. Marla wiped her face. "What happens to me now?" I looked at her folder, still tucked under her arm. "I don't know. That depends on the record." Then I walked away. The official results came in writing 2 days later. The operator change packet was denied. The $42,000 reimbursement request was frozen and flagged as unallowable. Marla was removed from all donor and county communications connected to the program. Her employer withdrew from the proposed vendor list after the county requested conflict documentation. The board entered the false operational statement into the public minutes, and I was confirmed as active operator for the full contract review period. Not because I cried, not because I begged, because the records matched my name. The first Monday after the hearing was quieter than people imagine. I did not wake up feeling victorious. I woke up tired. There is a strange exhaustion that comes after you stop holding up a lie other people built over your life. Your body does not celebrate immediately. It checks whether the danger is really gone. At 5:32 a.m., I unlocked the church basement kitchen. The fluorescent lights flickered twice before holding steady. The stainless steel tables were clean. The big soup pot waited on the stove. Someone had left a bag of oranges near the sink with a sticky note. "For Nora." from the Wednesday volunteers. We know who runs this place. I stood there for a moment, with my coat still on. Then I cried. Not loudly, not beautifully, just enough to let my body understand that something had ended. At 6:10 a.m., the volunteers began arriving. Mr. Feld brought coffee. Reverend Ames changed the backdoor access code and handed me the new number in a sealed envelope. "No one gets it unless you approve," he said. That sentence felt heavier than the county letter. Access. Not love, not guilt, access. I had confused those things for too long. At 7 a.m., Paul Greer arrived with a new donor pledge. At 7:18 a.m., Mrs. Hanley's niece dropped off a blue cardigan folded in a paper bag. "My aunt said you always look cold." Inside the cardigan pocket was a note. "Your father would know. I wore it on the first route." At 8:04 a.m., I delivered tomato soup to Mrs. Hanley. She opened the door, looked me up and down, and said, "Good. You still have the cooler." I held up Dad's old green cooler. "I still have the cooler." "And the name?" I showed her the tablet screen. "Director, Nora Bennett." Mrs. Hanley nodded once. "Then come in for 1 minute. I made tea." I had 83 more deliveries that morning. I went in anyway. Tea with someone who remembers you is not a delay. It is repair. Mother called that afternoon. I let it ring once, twice. On the third ring, I answered. "Nora," she said, and then stopped. For once she did not begin with blame. "I don't know what to say." "Then don't start with Dad." She inhaled sharply. I waited. "I'm sorry," she said. The words sounded unused. I stood in the church office looking at the framed photo of my father beside his green truck. "For what?" She was silent long enough that I almost hung up. Then she said, "For making you useful instead of loved." That one hurt. Because it was close to true, I sat down slowly. "I can accept that apology," I said. "But I need you to understand something." "Yes?" "You are not part of the program anymore. Not informally, not through Marla, not through family conversations. If you want to volunteer, you can apply like everyone else after 6 months. You will not use Dad's name to pressure me again." Her breath shook. "That feels harsh." "No," I said. "It feels new." She cried then. I did not comfort her. That was also new. Marla sent one email a week later. Subject, "I was wrong." "Nora, I wanted the title because I thought the title was the work. I know now that sounds terrible. I am ashamed. I told myself you were tired and I was helping, but I also saw the money and the attention. I signed things I should not have signed. I am sorry. I know you may never trust me again. Marla, I read it once, then I saved it in a folder. Not because I planned to punish her, because records are how I remind myself not to rewrite pain into politeness." I replied with 3 sentences. "Marla, I accept that you understand more now than you did before. I do not want you involved in my work or my funding. Please respect that boundary." Nor as she did not answer. 3 months later, the new program sign was installed outside the church basement entrance. Not big, not fancy, just a clean white sign with navy letters. Bennett Senior Meal Program. Director, Nora Bennett. Founded in memory of Thomas Bennett. I stood in front of it with Reverend Ames, Mr. Feld, Paul Greer, 6 volunteers, and Mrs. Hanley's niece, who took a photo even though I hate photos. My mother did not come. Marla did not come. That was all right. Some ceremonies are smaller than the wound, and still bigger than the people who caused it. The county renewed the contract at the end of the review period. Full funding. Weekend meal expansion approved. 2 new part-time coordinators. A second van. And the gray tablet was retired into a drawer in my office after the county upgraded the system. I kept it. Not because I needed it every day, because sometimes an object holds the shape of your survival. On the shelf above it, I keep Dad's root note. Add Mr. Lowell. No family nearby. Likes tomato soup. That note still tells the truth better than any mission statement I have ever written. My life did not become simple after the hearing. Recovery is not simple. Some mornings I still hear Marla's voice in my head, just the woman who carries the soup. Then I unlock the kitchen. I check the route list. I watch volunteers come in with sleepy faces and travel mugs. I see Mrs. Hanley's signature appear on the screen, shaky but stubborn. I see my name on the county portal, and the voice gets quieter. Mother and I speak once a month now, 15 minutes, no program talk. If she mentions Marla, I end the call. The first time I did that, my hands shook for an hour. The second time, only 10 minutes. Boundaries are not walls at first. Sometimes they are muscles. They hurt because you have never used them. Marla moved to another city 6 months after the hearing. I heard from a cousin that she left her office furniture job and started working for a small event company. I do not know if she changed. I hope she did. I do not need proof. That is another thing I learned. Not every ending requires access. 1 year after the hearing, we served our first Sunday meal. The church basement was full. Not crowded, not noisy, but alive. Mr. Alvarez brought his grandson. The Quinn twins argued about baseball beside the dessert table. Mrs. Hanley wore lipstick. Reverend Ames said a short blessing. And for once, I did not stand in the back. I sat at the first table. A volunteer placed a bowl of tomato soup in front of me. For a second, I could smell the inside of Dad's old truck. Motor oil, peppermint gum, warm bread in a paper bag. I thought grief would always feel like losing him. But sometimes, grief becomes the work you keep doing because love had nowhere else to go. That day, after everyone ate, I locked the kitchen myself. I turned off the lights. I checked the back door twice. Then I stood under the new sign and took one breath before walking to my car. My phone buzzed. A message from Mother. Your father would be proud of you. I looked at it for a long time. Then I typed back, I know, not thank you. Not, do you really think so? Not tell me again. Just, I know, because I finally did. If someone has spent years calling your work help, check the record. If someone has renamed your labor as family duty, write down what you carried. Not because you want to become bitter. Because someday, someone may stand in a public room and try to make your life sound smaller than it was. And when that day comes, memory may shake, feelings may blur, family may ask you to keep things private. But records do not get tired. Records do not flatter the loudest person. Records show who opened the door, who signed the form, who carried the cooler, who stayed. I used to think love meant being available. Now I know love without respect becomes access. And access without boundaries becomes ownership. Family is not the same thing as authority. Blood is not the same thing as permission. And patience is not a lifetime contract. I am still Nora Bennett. I am still the woman who carries the soup. But now, when I carry it, my name is on the door, my code opens the kitchen, my signature holds the contract, and my father's promise belongs to the work again. Nobody should eat alone if we can help it. But nobody gets to eat your life and call it family. That is what I learned. That is what I kept. And that is why, every Monday morning, when the old church basement lights flicker on, I no longer feel invisible. I feel present. I feel steady. I feel like the record finally says what I always knew. I was here.
Thank you for watching. If you'd like to hear more, you can follow this channel. Don't forget to hit that little bell icon to be notified when a new video is uploaded.